Hello and welcome back. If you watched part one of this video, this is part two, the books I read in March, April, May, and June of 2025. And if you didn't watch part one, make sure you go back and do that too and see what I read in January and February of 2025. Without further ado, let's get into the books. In March, I read 13 books, and 8 of them were rereads. Then I read a sequel to a book I'd read before. That was a sci-fi sequel. Then, because I got in the mood, I read 2 new sci-fi books. And then, sort of branching off from that, 2 new time travel books. Both sci-fi and time travel being genres that very dependably I enjoy. The first book I reread was A Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I don't really need to tell you anything about this book. Everybody knows the story. I read it ages ago and I wanted to refresh my memory and read it again. And with the sort of slightly dark, depressed mood I was in, it fit the bill. Just as good as before, actually better because I'm older, and it just resonated more with me because of my additional life experience, I suppose. The next book I finished rereading was The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson. Now, I love Emily Dickinson's poetry. The nature aspect is just dear to my heart. And I always love reading her poetry, but I had been on a little project to reread this entire book, which I did, and I just read some every night before bed. Very enjoyable. Put me off to pleasant dreams. And it also is sort of a segue into one of my projects for this year, which is to read tie-ins to some of my favorite authors. So in the future, I will be reading Emily Dickinson's Gardening Life by Marta McDowell. And this is the plants and places that inspired the poet. It's full of photos, paintings, examples of Dickinson's pressed flowers, and of course, Emily Dickinson's beautiful poetry. And a little different, I have a tie-in cozy mystery series by Amanda Flower that features Emily Dickinson and her maid as the sleuths. Because I could not stop for death and I heard a fly buzz when I died are the 2 that I have so far. Not sure if more have been published, but I'll definitely look into it. I know Amanda Flower is a great cozy mystery author, so this seemed perfect to go along with my Emily Dickinson project. The other 6 books that I reread were a series that I just love. It's written by Julie McElwain. It's called the Kendra Donovan series. The first book is A Murder in Time. Now, I'm not going to show you all 6 books, but this is book number 6, Ripples in Time. And I only have the first one in mass market, smaller, thicker version. These are so much easier to read, the bigger ones. And each of the 6 is a different pastel color, very pretty. So Kendra Donovan is in the FBI. She's a young genius. She's a profiler of serial killers. Something goes wrong on one of their missions, or whatever the word is, and half of her unit gets killed and she gets severely injured. Don't think she's gonna make it, but she pulls through. And then her goal is to go find the man responsible for killing all of her colleagues, and she's determined that he deserves to be assassinated. So once she's tracked him down in Britain, she goes after him. She finds him at a costume banquet for a bunch of rich, important people. She dresses as a maid that's working at the banquet to get into the castle. And while she is trying to assassinate this terrible person, somebody tries to assassinate her. And she has no time to think about this. She runs into a hallway, a stairway of some sorts to get away from him. And when she comes out the other end, she discovers she has traveled in time. She's now in 1815 in the same castle, still dressed as a maid, so she has a bit of cover. And that is where the series starts. And it's such a great blend of genres too. In addition to the mystery, which I can't say it's cozy because, you know, the murders are kind of well, they can be kind of grisly. They're definitely not off page all the time like cozy mysteries are. And she's not really an amateur either. But they are great mysteries / crime fiction. And they also are great Regency romances. And they also are great time travel, of course. And, well, that's just a great blend. I love this series, and everyone that I've recommended it to has also loved it. Rereading that great time travel series gave me the courage to strike out and read a couple of new books, new authors in the time travel genre. So I read Una Out of Order by Margarita Montimore and Here and Now and Then by Chen. I liked both of these. They both were original, shorter than your usual sci-fi or time travel, and just had a different kind of perspective on it. I think that Here and Now and Then was the first time travel I've read, I believe, that featured a man. His predicament was that after traveling from the future into the past, he got stuck, really stuck. And so eventually he had to, carve out a life for himself, and he did. And then one day the future arrives to get him. What's he going to do? He has a life now. It's very, very challenging. And what he wants to do and what the people who've come to get him want to do might just be two different things. The other book, Una Out of Order, was very unusual in its structure, I thought. In this one, a young girl, I believe it was her 18th birthday, which happens to be New Year's Eve, when midnight strikes and all the bells are going off and the champagne bottles are being popped and people are kissing, she passes out. And when she comes to, she's in a completely different time. But she is herself at a different point in her life. So while she passed out at 18, she might wake up and be 57 or 10 or 39, because this begins to happen every single year on New Year's Eve, her birthday. When midnight strikes, she knows she will pass out and wake up in a different point in her life. And it's not consecutive. It's all random, out of order. It was very interesting to read how she comes to grips with this, what her future self, who's already done this, does to prepare her past self. And yeah, she did a little too much partying at some points because she knew she could. Not too unexpected, I guess. But overall, very, very thought-provoking as to how she handled it and how you would handle it if it happened to you. So those time travel books led me to being willing to branch out into a couple of sci-fi books. It wasn't really a reach because I love sci-fi and because these two books everyone seems to have loved, and somehow I'd never gotten around to reading them. We're talking about Andy Weir, and the first one I read was Project Hail Mary. I loved Project Hail Mary, okay? The sense of humor this guy's got is fantastic, and the other character in the book I also truly loved. Just a great read. So after finishing Project Hail Mary and loving it so much, I decided to go ahead and give The Martian a try, even though I did wonder how it was going to hold my attention and interest just being this guy all alone stuck on Mars with nothing to do. But it did. It really did. It was good. I really liked the book. I didn't love it as much as I loved Project Hail Mary, I will say, because the other character, but it was very, very good. And it did hold my interest entirely. I won't say the same of the movie. The movie was pretty good, but nowhere near as good as the book, The Martian. I have recently seen the previews for the movie Project Hail Mary, however, and not only do I think Ryan Gosling is the perfect casting for the main character of this movie, but based on the clips I saw in the trailer, I can see they've expanded giving the background he had on Earth before he went to space. And by doing that, they can insert more of that humor that is so good, that fits the character so well. And I think this movie is going to be absolutely excellent. Can't wait to see it next year. I almost forgot to share with you the other sci-fi I read. Now, it was not a new author. It was a sequel, book number 4 in a series I love, which is the Lady Astronaut series. Books 1, 2, and 3, absolutely great. Book number 4, The Martian Contingency, was so highly anticipated by so many people, including me. I have to say, it doesn't quite measure up to the first 3 for me. It's a little lower. I mean, I still appreciated it. I still enjoyed it, getting back to these characters. Elma, who doesn't want to get back to Elma and see what she's up to? But I think the reason I was a little disappointed in The Martian Contingency was that I had already read book 4.5, which isn't really a book. It's a digital short story that Mary Robinette Kowal put out before book number 4 came out. So book or story 4.5, The Lady Astronaut of Mars, it tells what happens long after this. And I loved that short story. It was just so good. I read it last fall and I just thought it was perfect closure to Elma's story. And yeah, I think that set the bar even higher for The Martian Contingency, which is why I was a little disappointed in this. Now, it was January when I read this. I don't really remember the details of why I was disappointed. And at some point, I'm going to go back and reread the whole series in its entirety. And maybe, hopefully, the second time around, I won't be as disappointed and I'll read 4.5 after this. And so that will close out the series for me, unless she writes more, in a really great way. So moving on to April of 2025, I only read 3 books. Can you believe it? I can believe it. April is so busy for me because I have several orchards and gardens here on my property, and April might just be the busiest time of year, outside at least. I guess in the fall I'm pretty busy preserving things, but yeah, lots to do in April, including tons of mowing of this property. So the 3 books I read, they were all sequels. So they were all by authors I'd already read and enjoyed. No risk, right? So the first sequel I read was by Jesse Q. Sutanto. He wrote originally Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which was a huge hit. Everybody seems like has read it and loved it. Everybody wants Vera Wong in their lives. So I was really looking forward to reading book number 2 in the series, Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. And it definitely came with the same signature sense of humor, the same writing style, the same Vera Wong that you just know and love. And so I did experience a lot of the same enjoyment. I will say it wasn't quite as good as the first one for me. If you've read it, let me know. Did you think it was as good as the first one? Maybe I think my expectations were just so high because the first one was just so good. Not sure. I might have to reread both of them at some point. Now, the other 2 sequels I read actually were disappointing. It wasn't just me expecting too much. They weren't bad, they just weren't for me. So this is the Life as We Know It series. It is post-apocalyptic, which is a genre I enjoy. And I had read the first one in this, which was titled Life as We Know It, back last year at some point, and I did really enjoy it. There were 1 or 2 elements that, were a little off for me. Like the main character was a young girl, and sometimes I thought she was a bit self-centered, which, young girls can be. But, for me to fully identify with and enjoy, it was a bit much. But I mean, considering what was happening, and also we did see a lot of character development going on there with her, overall I really enjoyed the series. It was very cozy somehow, even though it was post-apocalyptic. It was really centered on her family and how they survived together, and yeah, I really liked it. Book 2 and 3, however, no. Book 2 was The Dead and the Gone, and book 3, This World We Live In. Book 2, we don't see any of the same characters from book 1. We're in a completely different state, New York, and the main character is a young boy, and I just didn't really care for him. I didn't like the way he kind of bossed around and bullied his sisters, and he was just a bit too know-it-all and a bit too conceited and religious, very, very religious. But On the other hand, I did like him because I could see why he was the way he was, the way his family had raised him. It would be hard for him to be anything but what he was. So I was hoping we would see quite a bit of character development out of him. And that just didn't really happen. I was left hoping that in book 3, because I'd heard that the 2 sets of characters from book 1 and 2 meet up in book 3, that is where we would see the character development for both this young man's character and the young woman from the first book. So then in book 3, This World We Live In, we did see all these characters meet up. Book 3, I have to say, was even more disappointing than book 2, probably because I was hoping it would get better. I like the setup. I like the post-apocalyptic world that she set up, but I just, there was a lot of unbelievable situations in that. Not that these things couldn't have happened, but when I was reading them the way they were written, they just didn't ring true. For instance, several characters getting married the day they met. And yeah, just stuff like that. So that closed out April. Thankfully, May and June of 2025 got a lot better as far as reading goes, and everything else for that matter. I finally pulled out of my reading slump, and the series that accomplished that for me was a genre I never ever would have thought I would pick up, let alone absolutely love. And it is the LitRPG genre, which I've never read before. I've never played a single video game or role-playing game before, but this series is awesome. It is the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And in May, I read the first 4 of 7 books. They are Dungeon Crawler Carl, Carl's Doomsday Scenario, The Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, and The Gate of the Feral Gods. Then in June, I read 5, 6, and 7, The Butcher's Masquerade, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, and This Inevitable Ruin. I don't really need to say anything about this series because I did a video all about this, wonderful series. In fact, now I'm a subscriber to the author Matt Dinniman's Patreon, and for a very low fee each month, he gives to us the chapters he's writing in book 8 as he finishes them. So I think we're up to chapter 15 now, and boy, I'm loving knowing what's happening to the 2 main lovable characters, Carl and his cat, Princess Donut. And in June, I also read 2 other books. I read the 4th and final book in the Life as We Know It post-apocalyptic series because, I'm a finisher and I wasn't going to read just 3 out of the 4 books. I just hoped that book 4 would be better than books 2 and 3. And you know what? It was. It was significantly better than both of those books. Just as good, if not better than book 1, actually. I mean, it wasn't as cozy by far as book 1, but it did a very good job, a very believable job, finishing off how all those storylines would have concluded. I didn't know how the author was going to do it, but in the very end, I liked the way she tied everything up, and I'm really glad I went back and finished it, since it sort of gave me some closure and made me feel a lot better than if I'd left off having read the disappointing books 2 and 3. Then the last book I read in June, it wasn't a sequel, but it was a book by an author I was already familiar with. Last year I read Nosy Neighbors by Freya Sampson, and that was a wonderful cozy book that I really enjoyed and highly recommended. And this one, The Last Chance Library by Freya Sampson, was also very, very good. And it followed an introvert character who was a librarian and how she had to come out of her shell and really make friends with her community in order to help the community to fight for her library's very existence. I also enjoyed the minor characters in this book, some of them especially. Very well done. I will definitely be reading more of Freya Sampson. So that covers the 35 books I read in January through June of 2025. Thank you so much. If you stuck with me all this way, I would like to know, what were the favorite books you read the first half of this year? I'm really looking forward to the rest of the year now that I'm out of that reading slump and back to my projects. Really enjoying my Plantagenet history project, as well as my author studies, Emily Dickinson and Charlotte Bronte, and my California history books. Not to mention my rereading my favorite cozy mysteries. Let me know in the comments your favorite books so far and any projects you have planned for the rest of the year. Until next time, wishing you some happy reading.